Well, as we celebrate this Solemnity of Mary, the Mother of God, we begin this new calendar year with a blessing from God. If you look at the Old Testament reading from today, from Numbers, it begins upon the name of the Lord is called upon the people. The name comes upon them, and his blessing then rests on them. But in the New Testament, the name of the Lord comes upon the people, but also he himself comes upon the people, in the midst of the people. In Jesus, we see God not just sending his blessing upon us, but sending his own Son, his very self, with a human face to come and bless us. And then in the Psalm, it's a nice bridge between the Old and New Testaments too. Let your face shed its light upon us, and we will be blessed. Just think about Mary's love for Jesus, and as she looked upon the face of Jesus, that baby Jesus, how beautiful that moment is. That's something to contemplate in our prayer. God sent forth his Son, born of a woman, says Galatians, this New Testament reading. And we go back to 431, to the Council of Ephesus, which is modern-day Turkey. That's where they called Mary the Theotokos at that council, the God-bearer, Mother of God. But why? Why did they do that? Why was it such a big deal to define that? Because the divinity of Jesus was being attacked at the time, in the 400s. And so, as naming Mary Theotokos, God-bearer, it was a protection of Jesus' divinity, the reality that it's safeguarded by the church, that he is both God and man, true God and true man. He was God from the start, not just later on. He was God from the start. It's interesting then to note, on this first of the calendar year, also Mary's interiority. Since we honor her as the Mother of God and ask for God's blessing upon our homes and our families to gather as a family of God to worship him, we also look at Mary as a great model of being a disciple of Jesus. It's interesting in Luke, he says certain things that we should question. All who heard it were amazed by what had been told them by the shepherds, and Mary kept all these things, reflecting on them in her heart. It's giving us a cue that Mary has a very active interior life. She's actually reflecting on these things in her life. But the word kept, actually it's interesting to go into the Greek every once in a while. Greek is like, it's all Greek to me, but Mary kept, that little word is actually suntero in Greek, but it means to actually store up something, to store up treasure. The mysteries of Jesus, Mary was storing up, holding them in her heart. And then reflecting on them in her heart is actually to ponder. So sometimes we see the translation, she pondered these things in her heart. And that really means, from the Greek, it's symbolo, which means to piece together. It means that she was piecing these things together in her heart. She was throwing them around, tossing these things around. The birth of the Savior of the world, who's now come into us. She is an eyewitness from the beginning. She's the only one who could say these things about those moments. So she must have told St. John. She must have let that be known, and then from John to Luke. They must have chatted with each other about these things for that to be passed down to us today. And this is a beautiful truth to think on. Mary's interior life, how she interiorly reflected on these things, kept them and pondered them in her heart. As we honor the Mother of Jesus, the Mother of the Eternal Son, the second person of the Blessed Trinity, the Church always says something about Mary in its will to protect something about Jesus. And that's something to rejoice in. All Marian feast days work this way. If we look at what they're defining or what they're emphasizing, it's also in relation to Jesus. May Mary keep us close to Jesus throughout the whole year.